Zach Dowdy here. In today's video, we're going to be building a mobile concrete quarter pipe, starting with a form I made in a previous video. First thing I'm going to do is clean up the wood from our last project. I grabbed some pre-cut rebar to avoid having to make my own cuts. Then I used metal I found from our previous project as chicken wire. Metal fence material will work as well. Essentially, we want to build a metal cage for snipping off any sharp edges that'll pierce the concrete. You don't need to worry about the rebar ties being super strong, just enough to hold things into place. I like to constantly make sure nothing is poking through the transition by guiding a 2x4 across the form. I invested in 3 new tools for this project. One being this tarp right behind me. I think a tarp can be super useful for any DIY skate project. And the next thing that I treated myself to was a magnesium float. And I'll get into the details of the magnesium float when we're mixing the concrete because it's a super useful tool and good to add to your arsenal for sure. Last thing that I treated myself to for this project was this drill bit right here. And basically this is going to be an extension to the concrete mixer, the putty mixer that I purchased earlier. I couldn't find the exact fit, and I think it's something with the drill and the concrete mixer that I got. We're definitely going to test this out today, and hopefully it makes our arms and back a lot less sore mixing concrete. Something else that I'm definitely going to do on this project differently than the last quarter pipe build that we did is I'm going to build this in the shade, and the reasoning being is so the concrete isn't exposed straight to the sun right away and it just prevents it from cracking and curing too fast. Alright, so we're going to grab some concrete, grab all of our trowels, grab all of our tools, get ready for mixing this quarter pipe. I'm going to tape up some of the seams, reasoning being on the last quarter pipe it definitely was kind of raw on the back and on the side, so hopefully this will make it a little bit smoother with the combination of hitting it with a hammer while it's curing, so we get all the rocks and everything moved around a nice hard surface. Definitely want to jump into some concrete clothes, your concrete mixing outfit, because you're going to get dirty mixing some concrete. I made this form about 3 inches thick at the very most, at the deepest part, and it's only 3 feet tall. So last time we used like about 2.5 bags and some change. So I brought 3 bags out, and we'll see. I'm gonna mix it definitely in smaller portions this time. Kept the rebar right in the middle of the form, so it's at its strongest point of the transition throughout the quarter pipe. The more you have to use things to keep your rebar in the middle of the transition, the weaker it becomes because those exposed to the back and it's harder for the concrete to really harden up and cure behind there. So yeah, we got the rebar right here. Let's get to mixing. Quick grit to water ratio is about 3 quarts of water for every 80 pounds. But honestly, we're probably gonna mix until we get to a nice good texture. So last time I made this quarter pipe, I used this wood trowel, and then after some thought, I realized I did shimmy it with this 2x4 first, which is the same process we're going to do today. So it's kind of doing the same thing twice in a way. So instead of doing that this time, I'm definitely going to shimmy again with the 2x4. Then we're going to use the magnesium float. And what's awesome about the magnesium float is basically it's going to push all the rocks down and get us that nice clean top buttery surface to where then we can just use the aluminum last coat float and like really finish it off. Quick update, this situation isn't really working. We'll get back to this later. For now we're going to use the shovel. Luckily it's only a couple bags. Alright, so once we got the concrete to a nice good texture like this, basically we're going to use the 2x4 and shimmy it along the transition, along our forms to get all the concrete spread out and filled to any holes, and basically making sure the concrete and everything is filled in really good and nice and stiff. And then we're going to hit it with a magnesium float. Once you get to this point, pretty much ready to use the good magnesium float to butter everything up. Alright, I'm pretty hyped with the magnesium float. It got the concrete to a really good place. It's almost done, but we're still going to use the finishing final coat to get that really butter top coat nice and smooth for skating. So the last trowel we're going to use is the aluminum float. Then after that, it's just let it cure. I'm going to do a different curing process. We're going to do a water cure this time. Last time I didn't do that, so I'll walk you through that once we get done buttering this bad boy up. Now that we're on our final trowel coat, we're just doing the finishing coat, getting everything really smooth. You really don't, or you shouldn't have to be pushing down too hard. It's almost more of a gradual, moving everything back and forth, and you're just filling any cracks that might not be filled, and you're just kind of getting the concrete to that really smooth texture where it's just easy to move around. Alright, so our quarter pipe's in pretty good shape. Everything's pretty much finished. At this point, it's a little bit of a waiting game. You can keep troweling it, smoothing it out for as long as you want, as long as it's not breaking apart and everything. But for now, I'm gonna leave it, let it cure for a little bit. Basically, yeah, let the hydraulics kick in. And then once it starts breaking away from the form, we're gonna peel it out and then we're gonna do a water cure. After letting the concrete sit in the form overnight, I sprayed it down with water first thing in the morning. I continued to get the concrete wet every 15 minutes for the next couple of hours. About 24 hours after the first final trowel coat, I loosened up the form to pop the quarter pipe out. What we're gonna do now is start the water curing process. And what I thought was kind of like an easy way to do this, since I don't really have like a tube or anything big that I can put this quarter pipe in to be water curing. Instead, I'm gonna make a little makeshift DIY bathtub for our quarter pipe. And once we get this covered in water, pretty much gonna leave it in there for 3 or 4 days. And the point of this is just to make the concrete a lot stronger. Like I was saying before, when the concrete's dry, it doesn't necessarily mean it's cured, it means it's dry. But the curing process does take weeks and weeks and weeks. And sometimes it can even crack and be really weak because of the curing process. It really deters how strong your quarter pipe is gonna be. So water curing makes it way, way, way stronger. And the point being is that you're slowing down the curing process. Concrete naturally tightens up, cures right away as soon as you start putting water into it, which can be counterproductive in sometimes because you can see cracking and all these different things. So the point of water curing is to slow the curing process down so you have a much stronger final product. For the next couple of days, I'm just gonna keep an eye on this bad boy as it cures, and then we're gonna think about the spot that we're gonna install it on and maybe prep up that spot as this is curing. So now that we got the concrete quarter pipe curing at home, it's all about finding the right spot to install it on. So I have a few locations scouted out for today to kind of check it out, make some basic measurements, and make sure that when we do bring the quarter pipe that it's gonna fit and it just is gonna work out. So now we're on our scouting mission to find the right spot. First spot we're at today is a bike path that I chose, and the reason I chose this is because it's far from any residents, any neighbors. There's a freeway behind it, so there will be no noise complaints. The only problematic thing that I see happening with this spot is just bikers being upset with skateboarders getting in their way because they are pretty fast when they're in the bike lane. Rightfully so, this is their lane. Yeah, we'll continue checking out a couple spots and then pick our final destination of where we're gonna install this quarter pipe by the end of today. Since we're in the area, we should stop by the first DIY spot that I ever built with my buddy Truman. Pretty funny because it's in a really busy area. Somewhere where you probably shouldn't build your first DIY spot. So let's check it out. Me and my buddy Truman built this spot probably over 10 years ago. You can see the concrete's like clearly separating from the bank because, you know, we didn't know what we were doing. You never know, like we thought this spot would maybe last 1 day at the very most. It's still here 10 years later. That just made me feel really old. I feel old. 10 years ago I was building skate spots. That's all right. I hope I'm still building skate spots in 10 more years. So I definitely want to find a spot that has a cool view or a nice scenic view behind it, so photography and videos look cool and skating it feels awesome. So we're at Sunset Cliffs, one of my favorite places here in San Diego. Try to see if there's a cinder block wall here or some sort of retaining wall here to build the quarter pipe onto. We are on the edge of time right now. This is where I would love to build the spot because it'd be so scenic, just doing little ollies, blunt fakies with the surfers in the background, the seagulls in the air, the salt. Just beautiful. It just has a good energy right here. But unfortunately, there's definitely not enough concrete to be building a spot. There's a little drainage ditch down there, but it's just not good enough to building a spot at. So it was a nice little break to check it out. Let's keep hunting. So behind me is an abandoned building, and it's been abandoned for over a year. I've been driving past it and thinking about building a spot nearby or within it. Before there was construction going on, but since COVID hit, it's been just shut down. There's nothing going on back here. So probably not gonna build on the actual property because that is still private property. Not that this loading dock area isn't private property, it still is, but it's a little less risk factor. And something that I'm thinking about right now, if you're in San Diego and you know where I should be building a quarter pipe like the one we're building today, and you have a suggestion of where it can go ahead and leave a comment down below. I would love to know if there's other locations in San Diego that would be good for this kind of quarter pipe, because I'm actually having a hard time finding one. After water curing for 5 days in total submerged water, I pulled the quarter pipe for another week to dry in complete sunlight. Now today I'm going to bring the quarter pipe and install it on the final spot that we found. Taking a look at the previous quarter pipe we built, I noticed the difference right away. The combination of tapping and hitting the form to get rid of the honeycombs made a large difference. The overall QP is smoother, harder, and much stronger. Moving this quarter pipe alone isn't an easy task. Luckily I had my fiance to help me through some of the challenging areas. Now we're ready to go install. The location I found has pretty good, quick, and easy road access, and I think that's pretty important. I've built spots around this property before, and it's been abandoned for over a decade. My friend James came out to help me. We lined up the quarter pipe on the wall to make a few marks of where we're going to need to grind into the ground and shave off about an inch to retrofit the QP. You want to take your time with this step. Make sure you really get enough of the ground so that the QP sits nice and flush. While James finished grinding up the ground, I'm going to prep our concrete. Today we're using pre-mixed mortar along with vinyl concrete patcher with some concrete bonding adhesive. I found this to be a great combo for thin concrete patches. You always want to make sure you clean up the surface before adding any concrete, so get it wet, sweep it up. Then you start tossing in your concrete mix. I like to add a little concrete bonding adhesive at the end to really blend the old with the new. You also want to add adhesive to the wall before adding concrete. Now that everything is patched up, we'll come back tomorrow for a session. So we were in a pretty big rush yesterday. We built this whole spot in about an hour. We were here for an hour at the most, and we just took off with the concrete wet. And the repercussions of that is now we have cracked concrete that we're gonna need to patch and fix up with some Bondo. The reason that the concrete cracked is basically it dried and cured too fast, and it just starts to crack when you do that. Before I add the Bondo, I'm going to rub break the wall and the lip of the wall to make sure I file down any rough edges that could catch your wheels or trucks. Finally, I went through the entire rub break and it broke. Bondo comes in 2 parts. First thing you want to do is pull out all the putty onto a nice clean surface. Then you'll mix in the hardener, and you'll have to make sure to work fast because Bondo dries really quick. I used a putty tool to scrape everything into the cracks. Bondo typically dries under 30 minutes. Honest, this spot is a lot harder than I had anticipated when we found the wall and we started to build it. That's okay, we kind of needed a challenging spot. The last couple spots that we built, I feel like were really fun and really easy to kind of do your standard tricks that you know and you can learn some stuff on. So this one's a challenge just to get a pivot on. I'm struggling. I wanted to get a tail block for you guys in this video, but I don't think I'm gonna get it today. I'm exhausted. Don't worry, we're gonna come back and get more sessions. I'm excited that we got out here and we built this spot though. That was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I just want to make sure that you know I'm definitely not the be-all or end-all of DIY, and I try to always say this is just my experience and how I do things, and I don't even know what I'm doing half the time, to be completely honest. I'm just learning from my experience, learning from my mistakes, and each time trying to improve and make better spots. So you guys are kind of along for the journey in a way. There's tons of other outlets out there we can find tips on how to build skate spots, but I hope you guys do enjoy, and subscribe if you're not already, and we'll be back at this spot to get some tricks. See you guys in the next one. Mash.